Hey vinyl community, this is Luke with Hot Wax and Cool Vinyl. Welcome back. This is my fourth installment in my top 100 albums. This is 70 through 61. Um, for a very quick recap, because I do try to keep these videos as short as possible, uh, I choose my top 100 albums based on records that have an emotional, get an emotional response from me, whether it's a memory or a specific point in time in history. Where was I when that song came out, or what was I doing, that sort of thing. And I do so very simply because I am a firm believer that if the records are in our collections, it's because we like them, and depending on your mood or anything like that, on any given day, any 100 can be your top 100. That said, let's commence without any further ado. This is number 70. This is Sing It Again, Rod Stewart, 1973. Die cut, great looking album cover. You can't pass up an album cover shaped like a rocks glass. You just can't. But that's not why this is on my list at number 70. It's on my list at number 70 because of the song Maggie May. It is a very simple song, but very complicated as well. I remember when I first heard it as a kid, it was, made perfect sense. It was, A led to B, led to C, led to D, etc. And then you more start hearing it, the more it's like, well, wait a minute. If A leads to B, how did we get to D? What happened to C? And so every time I hear it, I'm always brought back to that realization that, not all relationships flow A, B, C, D, E. Some jump all over the place, regardless of how much you love someone. So, Rod Stewart's Maggie May and Sing It Again, Rod, Die Cut Rocks cover, number 70 in my top 100 albums. Number 69. Barry McGuire's Eve of Destruction. Comes in at 69 and as high as it does for me, because if you've watched any of the prior videos, you'd know that I do tend to gravitate towards songs that have a certain aspect of social import. Eve of Destruction is the very first song that I can remember which made me realize music, aside from being fun and entertaining and singing along, also had an aspect to it which garnered the social import aspect of the music. Great song to this day, very much as powerful today as it was when it was written. The rest of his songs on this particular album are not bad, they're not great, but Eve of Destruction unto itself is a fantastic song, and it's a very strong album, and it really resonates with me because it brings me back to that time in my life where I listened to the song and I actually sat down and tried to figure out what the meaning behind the song was. And so Eve of Destruction, number 69, Barry McGuire. Great song, great album. A little on the lighter side, number 68, Grand Funk Railroad's Shine On. This is my display copy, not my play copy. My play copy is missing the glasses. Great copy, nice intersleeve too. It has the American Tour 1974, all the dates. This one is on here at 68 because of the locomotion. When this came out in 1974, I was still a very young boy. I believe I was in 5th grade at the time, and living on Long Island in what was suburbia. I mean, what you picture any television show or manicured lawns and a basketball hoop in front of the house. All the cars lined up. That's where I lived, and I remember playing basketball while this song was on, and just really loving the song. Before I even knew who Little Ava was, or that there was an actual edition prior to these guys, the song is great. It's got a great hook. It's got great. These guys rock it to the nth degree, and so just a really cool time in my life where again there wasn't a worry in the world. The summertime, my only concern was, do I want to have a sandwich for lunch, or do I want to run to the beach and jump in the water? So the Locomotion, Grand Funk Railroad. Just as a side note, Grand Funk is a great band. They don't get a lot of the credit they should, but great album, great band, great album. Give it a listen. And if you can get the album with the poster and the 3D glasses, and it's really a cool layout. So next up is number 67, Don Henley's Building the Perfect Beast. 1974, pardon me, 1984. On the east end of Long Island, we are a very beach boating and tourist community. We're by the Hamptons. And if you're in the hospitality business, as I was in 1984, the song The Boys of Summer resonates with you very much. As much of a beach rat as I am, and as much as I enjoy summer, there is something to be said about Labor Day. Labor Day arrives, and locally we call it Tumbleweed Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. And The Boys of Summer was a song that came out, and it just was a perfect match to my mood that summer. I had a great summer. It was fantastic. I had a blast. But when it ended, it was such a hectic summer. It was like, whew, now I can relax. So every time this comes on, it does two things for me. A, it reminds me of summer, even though the song is about the end of summer. And two, it automatically relaxes me because it reminds me of that particular time period. Also, Don Henley is just an amazing writer. He writes fantastic. He sings well, but he's just a great writer. And his songs always just flow perfectly. So that is number 67. Number 66, Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Welcome Back, My Friends, to the Show That Never Ends. Ladies and gentlemen, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This album is a record that has been part of my collection since I purchased it. If you recall, I've always said I had about 100 to 200 records that I always kept. This was one of those 100 to 200 records. It's not a superior album, I get it. It's a compilation live album. But I was introduced to this album because of the song Carnival 9. And I recall watching Carnival 9 on television as a young boy. I guess it was probably 1976, possibly 77, I don't recall exactly. But I had really wasn't very familiar with Emerson, Lake and Palmer at all. But Carnival 9 was such an amazingly cool song, and it was just, when Palmer goes into his drum solo, I mean, if you've ever seen the video, it's just, it's like immense percussions, and he's just going to town on it. So I bought that album because of that particular television concert clip that I saw all those years ago. And just a fun fact, if you YouTube Carnival 9 Live, almost every time the first YouTube video that pops up is that exact same video. Also, this is one of the coolest covers known to man. All the inner sleeves are die cut, and ELP, as you can well imagine. So this album is a great record. I like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I have an affinity for that. that album cover itself is probably the reason I have that album's been with me all those years. It was just so different for me when I started buying records, the way it was laid out, and the die-cut inner sleeves, the die-cut whole record holders, the gatefold, the trifold as it opened up. It was a 3-record set. It was just really, really different. A lot, very, very different than a lot of the stuff I had. Highly recommend buying that album, by the way. Number 65, and I'll try not to babble quite so much. Book of Dreams from Steve Miller. 1977, this album comes out. And in 77, I'm a freshman in high school, and Jet Airliner comes on, and, I'm listening to it, and I'm really kind of digging the song, and I'm really like, okay, what is this, And it's Steve Miller, and a buddy of mine takes me to the mall, and I see this record. And I see this great-looking cover. And I'm sitting in Sam Goody in the Smith Haven Mall, and I'm like, basically, got breaking the bank to get this thing. And my buddy lends me the couple of bucks that I was short. But I came home and I played the one and only song I knew about it was Jet Airliner. And I probably played Jet Airliner like 15 times before I listened to the rest of the record. But Introduction to Steve Miller in 1977 as a freshman in high school. Thanks to Jet Airliner and thanks to this amazing artwork on this cover. Across the board, even the inner sleeve, just really cool work. And even though it may not be his best work, personally, that is just a great record. So we are now to number 64. 64 is, and if I get confused, it's because I'm old. 64 is On the Border by the Beatles. This came out in I guess it was 73. And this thing is the epitome, as far as I'm concerned, of what I call California cool. It reminds me of my very first trip to the West Coast to visit some family members. It also has the song James Dean on it, which is my favorite Eagles song. Bill over at Vinylverse, who's got a great channel if you get a chance to check it out, highlighted this and gave a really in-depth chronology of the record. I'm not quite as adept as he is. I'm just going to tell you that this, for me, was a California cool record, and because of it, it comes in at number 64. At number 63, first soundtrack compilation album, American Graffiti. It's also playing on the stereo as we speak. American Graffiti came out in 1973, and it's on here for a whole host of reasons, but mostly because HBO had just been introduced in our area, and the year after American Graffiti came out. And when HBO was first introduced, they would play. It was billed as commercial free, and we're playing movies. And one of the first movies they had was American Graffiti. And I was in 6th grade when this was out, or 5th or 6th grade. And I swear to you, I must have watched this movie 20 times on HBO. To this day, I love almost every single song on this compilation soundtrack. And I absolutely adore listening to the late Wolfman Jack when he comes in and does his cuts on this record. This is as feel-good a record as you can get. And so this comes in at 63 for me. 62. Flirting with Disaster, Molly Hatchet. Okay. I'm just going to let you look at the cover for a few minutes. Okay. Every Dungeons & Dragons fan known to mankind loves Molly Hatchet. Even if they've never heard any of their stuff, they love Molly Hatchet because of the covers. I am in love with this artwork. So much so that if it wasn't for the fact that it cost too much money, in the late 70s, a big fashion was to have your blue jeans jacket painted, and it was usually painted after either an album or an artist. Or I desperately wanted this on the back of my Levi's jacket. I just didn't have enough money to get it done. That said, Southern rock, I got into it with an album that will be moving a little further up. But Flirtin' with Disaster, Whiskey Man were such hard-driving Southern rock songs that I just absolutely was stunned at how cool they were. Now, why is this album on here besides the ridiculously cool artwork? Because as a senior in high school, a lot of our clubs were promoting Southern rock cover bands. And one of the ones that I used to go see all the time, which was a band called Southern Cross, a local band called Southern Cross, they did Whiskey Man and Flirtin' with Disaster. They did them so well. It was just amazing. So, senior high school, going out to bars as an 18-year-old, drinking age was 18 in New York at the time. Just what a great memory, great time. And again, look at the cover. Finally, we have number 61. WBAB's Homegrown. WBAB is a local radio station here on Long Island. And when I was in high school, they started putting out homegrown albums which featured local talent. In this case, you had the Good Rats, you had Zebra, Broken Arrow, Twisted Sister, all great local bands. The DJs at the time were basically not just DJs, but they were stars in their own right. I mean, when they went to WBAB, when one of their DJs went to do a night at one of the bars as a DJ at a bar, the band was almost secondary to the DJ. So this album and a couple others which are a little higher up, featuring all our local bands here on the island, is up here because it just brings me back to that time in my life in high school where everything was really simple. Everything was just simple. Everything was just a little bit, it feels a little cooler than present day. I know it's not the case, but if you're my age, you kind of get it. Memory probably makes it feel a little cooler than it actually was. And this album is on here for another reason. There are in total 13 tracks that they covered, and I told you it was Zebra and all that, but these guys had an amazing sense of humor. On the album they write, "We regret that we could not include the following: Mr. Crowley by the Osmonds, the theme from Mary Tyler Moore Show by Judas Priest, Roadhouse Blues by Johann Sebastian Bach, Jeremy Bend Over by Emerson, Lake and Curly, Can't You See the Freebird Jessica by the Marshall Skinner Brothers, and the medley recorded live at Hammerhead's, a local bar, in 1980 by the Beatles." All right, guys, that's people with a sense of humor right there. All right, so that comes in at number 61. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave me a comment, subscribe if you like the channel, see some of my other videos. Have a terrific week. I'm really enjoying doing this. Also, as a side note, I bought 445s over the weekend, which I'm in the process of just kind of cleaning and sorting, and I'll have a recent buys of those, of the highlights of those, because I'm not going to show you the Village People 45 that I'm about to throw out. So That said, have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.